Hello and welcome everyone to the second edition of 24 Hours for Palestine to Our Ultimate Freedom.
Today is September 27, 2025, and right now it's 8 p.m. in Palestine. We begin.
My name is Andrea Assaf. I'm the founding artistic director of Art to Action. And by way of visual description, I am an Arab American woman with tan skin and short dark hair. I'm wearing a black shirt with a collar and a black keffiyeh around my neck. And behind me, you can see a bookshelf and a white wall with also a framed image of a black and white keffiyeh in the background. Art to Action is based in Tampa, Florida, on the unceded ancestral lands of the Seminole, Muskogee, Miccosukee, and Tocobaga peoples.
My name is Sahar Assaf. I'm the artistic director of Golden Thread Productions. We're based on the unceded land of the Ramaytush Ohlone people, known colonially today as San Francisco, California. I'm an Arab woman with light skin and long gray and brown hair. I'm wearing a black shirt with a keffiyeh scarf, and behind me is a plain white wall.
Over the next 24 hours, over 100 artists, theater makers, journalists, scholars, educators, activists, and more will come together from across the world for 24 hours of non-stop performances, panels, dialogues, short films, personal stories, eyewitness accounts, poetry, music, and more, in an act of global solidarity as we raise our voices together for the liberation of Palestine.
We come together again over a year later for the second edition of 24 Hours for Palestine, because the genocide that Israel is committing in Gaza has not yet ended, nor has the systematic erasure, expulsion, and violence against the Palestinian people, which has continued for over 76 years.
We come together now, from North America to Southwest Asia and beyond, to speak out against mass starvation, ethnic cleansing, forced displacement, cultural erasure, and the mass murder of civilians, journalists, doctors, children, and human beings based on race, culture, religion, or ethnicity. We come together also to resist censorship and to speak out despite the systematic silencing of Palestinian voices and voices for Palestine.
24 Hours for Palestine Part 2 to Our Ultimate Freedom is co-organized and co-produced by Golden Thread Productions and Art to Action with an inspiring global coalition of endorsing partners.
Many thanks to the Arab American National Museum, Artists on the Frontline, Ashtar Theater, Aviva Arts, Calling Up Justice, Decolonial Dharma, Donkey Saddle Projects, Dunya Productions, The Freedom Theater, Meme Collective, New Arab American Theater Works, Noor Theater, the Palestine Institute for Public Diplomacy, and Zukak Theater Company.
When we did the first 24 Hours for Palestine, A Moon Will Rise from Darkness in July 2024, we could not have imagined that we'd be here today, more than a year later, not only still witnessing the genocide, but witnessing its escalation.
As of today, September 27th, 2025, over 65,500 people have been reported killed in Gaza since October 7th, 2023. And 90% of Gaza's 2.1 million people, approximately 1.9 million people, have been internally displaced.
The majority of those killed are civilians, with United Nations officials reporting that women and children make up more than half of the dead, at least 20,000 children. Hundreds of thousands more are missing, presumed dead under the rubble.
Between May and July 2025, OHCHR documented over 2,000 Palestinians killed while seeking aid in Gaza. As of September 17th, UNRWA and OCHA reported that over 432 people, including over 146 children, have already died from malnutrition or starvation.
An IPC special snapshot on Gaza published in August 2025 stated that famine is present in Gaza and projected to expand further. The report says approximately 641,000 people could face IPC Phase 5, which is catastrophe famine level hunger, by the end of September 2025.
Over 1,590 health workers have been killed. According to the Health Cluster OCHA status as of September 13th, 2025, only 18 of the 36 hospitals in Gaza are even partially functioning.
97% of school buildings in Gaza damaged. 432 schools have taken direct hits.
As of March 2025, according to a UN Commission of Inquiry report, over 57 university buildings had been destroyed.
UN experts stated on September 4, 2025, that at least 248 journalists had been killed in Gaza. At least. As of 2024, the Gaza Strip has become the deadliest single location for journalists in the world, according to the Committee to Protect Journalists, CPJ, and Reporters Without Borders.
And the list of atrocities and war crimes and crimes against humanity that Israel commits daily in Palestine continues to grow, while our governments here in the US keep funding this genocide. Historically, between 1946 and 2024, Israel received $228 billion in military aid from the United States, making it the largest recipient of US military financing in history. In 2024 alone, the US federal government sent Israel $17.9 billion in military funding to mass murder the Palestinian people with US tax dollars, plus another $7.6 billion in 2025 so far. In addition to this financing, the US has vetoed 6 United Nations Security Council resolutions demanding a ceasefire in Gaza.
In the last year, we all have seen images and watched videos that will be forever engraved in our minds and psyches. Content warning, we will describe some of these indelible images.
We saw the father of a 19-year-old Palestinian journalist, Hassan Hamad, collecting the dismembered remains of his body in a shoebox.
We witnessed a young man, Sha'ban al-Dalu, burned to death while still attached to an IV.
We saw a 9-year-old Palestinian boy forced to use a plastic pipe as a prosthetic in place of his lost leg. His name is unknown.
We watched a doctor walk towards a tank in his white robe and disappear into the black hole of Israeli dungeons. Dr. Hussam Abu Safiye is still in captivity today.
We heard the voice of Rafa paramedic Refaat Radwan saying, "Forgive me, Mother. This is the path I chose, Mother, to help people. Forgive me, Mother," before he was executed by Israel, alongside his colleagues, and their ambulances burned in the sand, buried in the sand.
We watched Tala Batran, about 8 years old, scouting next to her father's dead body, beating her head and screaming, "Yaba, Yaba, hakkak ala rasi, Yaba. Father, Father, I am sorry."
We watched a group of journalists murdered live on television in a double-tap drone strike. Their names are
مريم أبو دقة وحسام المصري ومحمد سلامي ومعاذ أبو طه وأحمد أبو عزيز.
We witnessed a little girl on a hospital bed, her intestines exposed, her face covered in blood, taking her last breaths. Her name is unknown because her entire family was killed, leaving no one to identify her.
We read the words of Asma Mughari, mother of murdered children Aya and Aboud. On September 16, the day Aboud would have turned 7, she shared this message on her Instagram alongside a picture of baby Aboud. ليس علي أقسى من ذكرى يوم ميلادك سوى لحظة معرفتي بأنك قتلت يا ابن قلبي، وكان جثمانك حينها لا يزال تحت الركام.
There is nothing more painful for me than the day of your birthday, except the moment that I learned you had been murdered, son of my heart. Your body was still under the rubble then.
وفي اليوم الذي عاد فيه المطر لأول مرة بعد استشهادك، كان نصيبك أن يخرج ما تبقى منك من تحت الأنقاض ثم يدفن.
And on the day the rain returned for the first time after your martyrdom, it was destined that what remained of you would be pulled out from under the rubble and then buried.
وأتذكر أنك كنت قد سألتني قبل الحرب بأيام: ماما كم يوم ويجي المطر؟ فاسأله الآن يا حبيبي. اسأل الله عن كل شيء، واسأله كيف يقتل طفل كان ينتظر الفرح والأمان والمطر.
And I remember you had asked me in the days before the war, Mama, how many days until the rain comes? So ask him now, my love. Ask God about everything. Ask him how a child who was waiting for joy, safety, and rain could be killed.
And there are over 60,000 images that we haven't seen, voices we haven't heard, lamentations that won't be written because entire families, neighborhoods, and communities were erased.
However, despite the complicity of many world leaders in this ongoing genocide, the tide is shifting and people of the world are speaking out. In the past 2 years, we have seen the largest global movement for Palestine in our lifetime. Protests, boycotts, civil disobedience.
UN resolutions, official recognition of genocide, ICC and ICJ rulings, nations recognizing Palestine for the first time.
The Gaza Solidarity encampments, which started at Columbia University in April 2024, spread to over 180 universities worldwide.
In October 2024, the Hind Rajab Foundation filed a historical complaint at the International Criminal Court against 1,000 named IDF soldiers for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide in Gaza, in addition to filing cases against named IDF members for war crimes and crimes against humanity in Cyprus, Greece, Belgium, Brazil, and other countries.
In the US, over 250 BDS victories, companies and institutions cutting ties with Israel or removing investments linked to Israeli occupation have been documented.
Including Harvard Law student body passed a referendum by a 73% majority to divest from Israel.
And despite US opposition, 157 countries now formally recognize Palestine, including recent recognitions by France, the UK, Canada, Australia, and Portugal, though 77 years late.
Just this month, September 2025, the Spanish government approved a legal arms embargo against Israel, one of the strongest steps by a European Union country in response to the war on Gaza.
We have seen this movement growing. From 180,000 people filing into Mexico City's Zocalo in a massive Free Palestine concert,
to 90,000 people shutting down Sydney Harbour Bridge, to thousands defying mass arrests in ongoing UK protests, to hundreds of thousands gathered in Dhaka, Bangladesh, March for Gaza to demand an end to the genocide and Israeli apartheid.
People across the world are rising up for Palestine every day, even if Western mainstream media tries to hide it.
This week, on September 22nd, 2025, a 24-hour general strike was called by grassroots and autonomous unions and civil society groups across Italy to protest against Italy's complicity in the Gaza war. Their slogan was, "Block everything."
Right now, while we live stream, a global civilian flotilla is sailing toward Gaza, Palestine, to bring aid to the people of Gaza against the will of governments. As reported in the Jerusalem Post on the 25th of September, 2025, the Israeli Shayetet 13 unit is preparing to intercept and to board and take over the vessels, but the flotilla continues.
Meanwhile, a Greek naval vessel has joined the flotilla with further naval units from Spain and Italy en route to escort the flotilla through international waters, following the drone attacks on the civilian vessels and crews.
And even in the arts, this movement is growing too. Over 400 artists and labels have joined the No Music for Genocide campaign, pulling their music from Spotify or geo-blocking it in Israel.
And more than 17,000 artists, curators, and critics signed a letter calling for Israel's exclusion from the Venice Biennale due to the war in Gaza.
Over 1,800 Hollywood actors and filmmakers have pledged to boycott Israeli film institutions, refusing to collaborate with producers or festivals that are complicit in genocide and apartheid.
182 members of the Royal Ballet and Opera signed an open letter refusing performances in Israel, this is the opera in UK, stating that their institution should not legitimize or economically support states engaged in the mass killing of civilians.
And this event, 24 Hours for Palestine, which you are witnessing, is a small action in this global movement.
Every single action, small and large, moves us toward the liberation of Palestine, toward our collective humanity, and to our ultimate freedom.
Our title for this second edition of the 24-hour live stream is inspired by the legendary Palestinian poet Mahmoud Darwish. In his poem, A State of Siege, he writes, "The martyr reminds me, there is no aesthetic beyond freedom." And as artists and cultural workers and leaders, the struggle and resistance of the Palestinian people reminds us that liberation must be the ultimate goal of everything we do.
And the voices you will hear over the next 24 hours are committed to the ultimate freedom of the Palestinian people.
You can find the full program lineup at goldenthread.org and follow Golden Thread and Art to Action on social media for real-time updates over the next 24 hours. There's also a digital program on the Golden Thread website and a resource list that you can access to take action and support.
And now we are very honored to begin these 24 hours with Mosab Abu Toha. Mosab Abu Toha is a Palestinian writer, poet, scholar, and librarian from Gaza. His debut book of poetry, Things You May Find Hidden in My Ear, won the Palestine Book Award and an American Book Award. It was also a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award and the Walcott Prize for Poetry. His books include the poetry collection Forest of Noise. This year, Mosab received the 2025 Pulitzer Prize for his New Yorker essays about Gaza. Welcome, Mosab.
Thank you so much, Sahar. Thank you so much, Andrea. This is a heavy day for all of us in Palestine. Another episode of the Israeli genocide. Before I start, sharing this breaking news from Al-Nusayrat refugee camp in southern Gaza, the Israeli terrorist forces bombed civilians walking in the street close to the Al-Nusayrat market. 15 people were killed. I just shared the names of 12 people who could be identified. 3 other people couldn't be identified because they were shredded into pieces. So this is the kind of news that we are witnessing, that we are sharing with the entire world. I remember last year I took part in this very important action that you are organizing. So I would like to thank Art for Action, Golden Thread Production for continuing to do this very important work. Remember taking part in that. It was already a year into the genocide, or even maybe a little bit less than a year. And here we are, second year of the genocide. We're still speaking up. We're still calling out the perpetrators of the genocide. We are still sharing the names of people who were killed. We're still adding, unfortunately, more and more names to the list of our loved ones. 2 days ago, Israel killed a second cousin of mine, Mohammed Abu Toha, along with his wife and their 4 children. The oldest was 11 years old. The youngest was 2 years old. So it is very hard for me to continue to speak out and to keep the window open for the outside world to watch what's happening inside of Palestine. But this is the only thing that I, as an artist, as a survivor of the genocide, can try to continue doing.
Mosab, thank you so much for being here, despite everything and all the work that you're doing single-handedly. Really, you're keeping lots of us informed through your social media. I encourage everyone to follow you, and you keep sharing daily updates. And I appreciate that you take your time to research and provide names, because it's important. It's ridiculous we have to say it, but these are not numbers. These are people with histories and stories and families and loved ones, and you keep doing that despite being yourself a survival of this genocide. So there's nothing really to thank us for. I feel like this is the bare minimum that we continue to speak out for
But
Palestine.
still, this bare minimum. So many artists are not doing the bare minimum. So we should thank the people who are speaking out, and who continue not only to speak out but continue to speak out. So you have done this last year. You're doing this year. You're inviting other artists to take part in it. So this is a commendable action that you're taking, and we need to do more and more and more. But everyone is expected to do what they can do. So this is an invitation to the so many artists who have been silent or have been very, shy to speak out and to name what Israel has been doing, to do it now.
Yes, we add our voice to yours. This is exactly why we're doing this event, or at least one of the reasons, to encourage more people. It's not too late. Speak out now, before it is too late, really. Yeah. Andrea?
Mosab, it's such an honor to have you with us, and thank you for taking the time to join us. It is remarkable that in moments of such immense violence and personal loss, you have been able to return to poetry over and over again as a form of survival, documentation, as you talked about last year, and resistance. And we'd love to invite you to share some of your poetry with us. And we're always honored to hear your work and to be able to share it with a broader audience.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. And this is something that I've been, asking my audiences, my readers, something that I ask them to keep in mind, which is that the poems that I have written, the poems that I'm reading right now, are not poems or essays. For example, if I was to to read an essay, it's not a poem or an essay that I wrote about something that happened, but it is about something that keeps happening. Some of the poems continue to take place, even though I wrote them last year or 2 years ago. So this is an ongoing genocide, not a genocide only that started in October 2023, but also a genocide that started way before 1948. But it was on a smaller scale, no media attention, no social media. But for us, so many of the poems that I have written about the ongoing genocide are things that not only happened when I wrote the poem, but things that have been happening for decades, unfortunately. So I want people to keep in mind that when they read a poem by me or by Mahmoud Darwish or by Samih Al-Qasim, that these poems were not only written in the 60s or the 50s or the 40s or in the 90s or in 2025, but these poems have never, unfortunately, ceased to happen for years and years and years. But now we have the luxury of publishing our books, even though it's not easy, but also sharing our work on social media and sometimes on mainstream media. So we have the luxury of sharing these poems with the outside world, although it's not a luxury. But compared to other poets who were killed with their families, it is a luxury that we are alive and we are able to read our poems, even though it is very tough. We are looking for Palestine. The sun rises and moves around. It sets to visit other places, and we are looking for Palestine. The birds wake up and look for food. They chirp on the blossoming trees laden with fruit, with peaches, apples, apricots, and oranges, and we are looking for Palestine. The sea waves lap against the shore, they glitter and dance with the fishers' boats, and we are looking for Palestine. People travel to relatives and friends. They book round-trip tickets, stuff their suitcases with gifts and books and clothes, and we are looking for Palestine. Sir, we have no airports and seaports, no trains or highways. We have no passable roads, sir. We do have crutches and wheelchairs, young men with one or no legs, no longer able to work as if there was work. We travel to the West Bank or Egypt for surgery, even to set a broken leg, but we need a permit to enter. We stuff our suitcases with pictures and memories. They feel heavy on the ground. We can't carry them, neither can the roads. They scar the surface of the earth. We get lost in the present, past, present, and future. When a child is born, we feel sad for him or her. A child is born to suffer here, sir. A mother feels the great pain in labor. A child cries after leaving her dark place. In Palestine, our dark is not safe. In Palestine, children always cry. If we want to travel, we leave many times. In Gaza, you leave via Erez or Rafah, a hard escape to make. So we search for the visa interview. Cairo, Istanbul, Amman, but not in Palestine. We don't have embassies, sir. The one in Jerusalem is farther than the Andromeda galaxy. Andromeda is 2.5 million light years away, but our years stay heavy and dark. It would take trillions of years. Sir, we are not welcome anywhere. Only cemeteries do not mind our bodies. We no longer look for Palestine. Our times is spent dying. Soon, Palestine will search for us, for our whispers, for our footsteps, our fading pictures fallen off blown up walls. So this is one of the poems that I wrote before the start of the ongoing genocide. And so many of the things are still true. Some of them are not true. When I said only cemeteries do not mind our bodies, even cemeteries, many people haven't been buried in cemeteries because the cemeteries were destroyed or Israel was occupying the cemeteries. Many people were buried in the streets. Many people were buried under the rubble of their houses. Many people were buried in the courtyards of their houses. So it is very devastating to revisit the poems for me as a writer and also as a reader. No art. This is another poem I wrote before the genocide. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Elizabeth Bishop. You know everything will come to an end. The sugar, the tea, the dried sage, the water. Just go to the market and restock. Even your shadow will abandon you when there is no light. So just keep things that require only you. The book of poems that only you can decipher. The blank map of a country whose cities and villages only you can recognize. I have personally lost 3 friends to war, a city to darkness, and a language to fear. This was not easy to survive, but survival proved necessary to master. But of all things, losing the only photo of my grandfather under the rubble of our house was a real disaster. So the 2 poems that I read were from Forest of Noise, which was published last year by Kanov. I will read one poem that I published after the book was published. And it is very relevant to what we are watching. Just today, I saw a photo of that was posted, one of the members of the Palestinian Civil Defense, of a stray dog. So it was a photo, not a video, of a dog eating what remained of an old woman in the street. Because not only Palestinian people in Gaza are killed by the Israeli terrorist forces, But many a time, their bodies are left in the street. No ambulances, no first responders are able to go there to retrieve their bodies and bury them, take them to the hospital before burial. So many people were left in the street. We watched so many videos, so many photos of dogs, cats, scavenging the bodies of those who were left to die again and again in the street. So this poem, part of it is about that, but it is a very relevant poem to everything that we are watching. A hand is no longer a hand. After the airstrike near a mulberry tree and some wild plants, they found the unmoving body of a boy. An eye was completely closed. The other was half open, watching for any piece of shrapnel that could kill him again. In my city, the army rounded up all the men, forced them to stand against the wall of the primary school. The hands raised, touched the newly painted bricks as if getting prepared to play the piano before the bullets drummed on shivering heads and backs. During the airstrikes, we sat on the tiled, dusty floor, stock still as pills in a bottle in a pharmacy in a town where no one gets sick, where everybody is dead. I look at his wrist. It is crushed, nearly severed. And then at his shoulder, a bone is fractured. He is 4 years old. I say to my wife, "Oh, look how brave he is. He's not crying, no pain, no tears, even with no parents beside him." I set my eyes on his face. His eyes are not moving. His heart is not beating. He is taking a rest. A hand is no longer a hand as long as it does not find another hand to shake, as long as it does not find food to share with others, as long as it does not find a pen to write, as long as it's the only meat a dog can find to eat, as long as it goes missing forever. You get displaced, you get wounded yet survive. You jump off your cot when a missile hits the hospital. You shelter in a tent, you get displaced again. You get displaced again and again on crutches or a wheelchair. You get Gazaned a zillion times. If we stay in our houses, they bomb us. If we shelter in a school, they bomb us. If we run to a hospital, they bomb us. If we move to a tent, they bomb us. If we go to a toilet, they bomb us. If we run from an airstrike, they bomb us. If you do not do any of this, they still bomb us. If we stay like a tree or temporarily leave like a leaf in the fall, they bomb us. But spring will come, and those who bomb us, will find no bombs among the flowers. We will be on the trees bathing in the sun, and those who bomb us, will have no sun, no place to run, no place to rest, no legs to run. He never woke up. I can see a juicer, a mattress, a blanket, what remains of a closet, what remains of a basket, and maybe a potato or an onion. The dust makes it difficult to distinguish a potato from an onion, but I can distinguish death. I can see it in the open mouth, in the closed eyes. I can see every one of us under the rubble. I will finish with one more poem from Forest of Noise. I'll read one poem that has Arabic in it. This poem was written before the genocide. Unfortunately. Request letter. He pens a quick letter on paper, a letter as plain in regard to form as possible, with no white spaces, and throws it in the graveyard at night. Angel of death, when you collect the souls of those killed in an airstrike, do you mind leaving us a sign so we know who is who? Because last time my old kindergarten teacher couldn't recognize her daughter's face, which ear or arm or bloody finger on the dusty streets was hers. And a father wouldn't recognize which was his child if it wasn't for the size of the shoes, 28 European size still on the sole, that he bought him for the new school year. On the back of the paper, he pens the same letter in Arabic, because who could know what language the angel of death uses, the most spoken language in the world, or the language of God. إلى ملك الموت عندما تجمع أرواح من قتلوا في الغارة الجوية، هل تمانع بأن تترك لنا إشارة تدلنا على من هو من؟ لأنه في المرة الماضية لم تستطع معلمتي الكبيرة أيام الروضة أن تتعرف على وجه ابنتها، أية أذن أو ذراع أو أصبع مدمي في الشارع المغبر كان لابنتها. وكذا أب لم يستطع أن يعرف أية طفلة كانت ابنته لولا حجم الحذاء 28 بالمقياس الأوروبي كان منقوشا على نعل الحذاء الذي اشتراه لها للعام الدراسي الجديد. I'm just looking at my watch. I think I may have one poem, or is it okay?
Sure, absolutely. Please. We're so moved by your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Appreciate that. Okay, I will read two small poems from Forest of Noise. This one was also written before the genocide. All the books that I was talking about, or my library, are now under the rubble. So this would be a different poem if it was written a few days or a few weeks ago. My library. My books remain on the shelves as I left them last year, but all the words have died. I search for my favorite book out of a place. I find it lying lonely in a drawer next to the photo album and my old Nokia phone. The pen inside the book is still intact, but some ink drops have leaked. Some words breathe its ink. The pen like a ventilator for a dozen patients. Home, Jerusalem, the sea, Haifa, the rock, the oranges, the sand, the pigeon, Cairo, my mother, Beirut, books, the rock, the sea, the sea. This is a last poem before I stop. This is one of the poems I keep reading everywhere I go, because I wrote it about how I was surviving or trying to survive as a father during the Israeli terrorist attacks in May 2021. But unfortunately, nothing of the things that I'm going to mention in the poem, nothing of them is going to save the soul of one child, not a family. Because the situation right now is totally different. People are living in tents right now. People are living in the street. What a Gazan should do during an Israeli airstrike: turn off the lights in every room, sit in the inner hallway of the house, away from the windows, stay away from the stove, stop thinking about making black tea, have a bottle of water nearby, big enough to cool down children's fear. Get a child's kindergarten backpack and stuff, tiny toys and whatever amount of money there is, and the ID cards and photos of late grandparents, uncles or aunts, and the grandparents' wedding invitation that's been kept for a long time. And if you are a farmer, you should put some strawberry seeds in one pocket and some soil from the balcony flower pot in the other, and hold on tight to whatever number there was on the cake from the last birthday. And Andrea, I read this poem with a heavier heart right now, because the poem that I wrote in May 2021 had one guy, one man, one father who was killed last month. On August 1st, he was wounded, and on August 3rd, he passed away after 2 pieces of shrapnel penetrated his head after an Israeli terrorist airstrike. And that was my father-in-law, Abdel Jalil Mai. He was the strawberry farmer that I was talking about in the poem. So they killed the strawberry. They killed my father-in-law, whom I refer to as Uncle Jalil. He's the grandfather of my 3 children who are now up in this country. So we are very, very, devastated by this loss. They not only killed the strawberry farmer, but they killed the strawberry itself in Gaza. They destroyed the strawberry farms. They killed the strawberry farmers. They deprived people of everything, especially the strawberry that we loved, especially in Beit Lahia in North Gaza. And I pray for the safety and the well-being of our people in Gaza, especially those who lost family members and who are struggling to survive in the midst of this genocide.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Mosab. Both your work is so extraordinary, and also your the loss you're actually living through and functioning through, and continuing to write through is extraordinary. I was struck by when you said, but all the words have died.
Yeah.
And then somehow you find that some words still breathe life. And I wonder if you could speak to that, how writing helps you continue through this time. And, I think many of us as writers and artists around the world are struggling to make sense of why we even make art in times of genocide, or what it is that we're trying to do. But I think that when we hear your work, it's so clear why it's important. The deep humanity and the precision with which you help us know someone that we could have never known in life, but we feel connected to through your words. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, for you, what is the active writing in your own process of continuing in these times?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not in a better position when it comes to the usefulness of writing. I struggle. I've been struggling lately with writing. So it's a normal feeling. But I mean, sometimes I wonder how I could write some of the poems, because now I feel like I'm looking back at myself. How could I manage to write the poems? How could I manage to write nine essays for the New Yorker over the past 23 months? I mean, it is understandable that we as artists question the value and the importance of writing, but for me, because I'm from there, I know many people there. I have deep connection with the place and people. I couldn't save my relatives who were killed while I was in Gaza. I couldn't save them while I was in Egypt, and I couldn't save them while I'm here in this country. But the only thing that I have been struggling to do and managed to do to some extent is to honor the memories of these people by sharing their names, sharing their stories. And I live by the lines of Refaat Alareer: "If I must die, you must live to tell my story." And for me, this poem is not only about Refaat as an individual; it is about the children in Gaza, the parents in Gaza. If someone of us had to die, they need the other people to fight for their lives, to tell the story of those who were killed. Because if all of us were killed, then no one will know anything about us. So those who survive, those who fight for their lives, carry the message of those who were killed before them. So that's part of why every time I convince myself of just keep these stories to yourself, or just sleep and maybe turn off your phone, just abandon everything. This world is hopeless. This world has abandoned us. And this is true. I mean, mostly the entire world has abandoned the Palestinian people. Especially when I talk about 1948. I mean, I look back at 1948. I mean, how could that happen? How could we Palestinian people live in refugee camps for 77 years? How? Why was that allowed? And still the Palestinian people are celebrating the recognition of a state of 77 years, and on what piece of land? So this is devastating for me to see people celebrating the recognition of the Palestinian state as if it's something that we accomplished. It's not something that we accomplish. It is a right. We exist. We have existed, and our existence has been devastated by the occupation and the genocide that we are witnessing right now. So I couldn't save a single child in Gaza, but I couldn't save my father-in-law. I couldn't save my second cousin who was killed two days ago in a shelter camp where I was born. I was born in that camp. He was killed there. So I couldn't save any one of them, unfortunately. We are made helpless. We are made sound like useless people to the people in Gaza because our government, I mean, not our government, I mean, I'm not American, but I mean, the governments which are ruling the countries that are funding the genocide, are turning, unfortunately, deaf ears to the pleas of the people. I mean, people have been begging, please stop this. This is not unacceptable. This is a crime against humanity. But no, I mean, they have not stopped that only, but they continue to fund the genocide. So I couldn't save any of my relatives. I couldn't save my students, about two of whom I wrote about in my essay. I couldn't save any of them, right? But I could at least save their names and share their names with other people. This is something, I mean, this is the only reason there is in the world. Not only my grief, the grief that I feel, that I need to write about it, but I know, I mean, the urgency. I need to tell the people that today, this day, September 27th, right? My student was killed, and this is his photo, and this is something that he told me when we were walking outside of the classroom, because I know that tomorrow another person could be killed. I will have to write about them. So there is no time for me to relax or to say that, oh, maybe I'll write something about them later, because every day there is a story, and I have this responsibility as someone who knows these people to write about them. Now, for the other artists who have never been to Gaza, who don't know, anyone from Gaza, but they see the humanity, the devastation there in Gaza, they also have a responsibility to reflect, to show, to get their feelings of devastation out by writing, by painting, by singing. Every single day there should be a song for Gaza, for Palestine. Every day there should be a painting by every artist. And this also applies to the people in Yemen, in Sudan, in Syria, in Ukraine, or every country that has been devastated by the war machine. Every single day there should be hundreds and thousands of art pieces that would, show the people there that we care, that we see you, that we feel. This is what I can do as a human being who is now, I mean, in the United States, we're about 5,000 miles away from Gaza, but we feel like it's happening in the room where we are staying. And we have to show the whole world that we are seeing, we are watching, and we are feeling, and we are not gonna forget. Every day there is a massacre in Gaza, there should be a response by artists to those things. I mean, even if you had to write one line on your social media that, oh, I saw this massacre, it breaks my heart. Look at that child. I mean, some of the children whose photos and videos were shared on social media, many of them, I'm one of the people who post. But I mean, if you look as an artist, I mean, you look at the video or the photo and you see a child, wearing a T-shirt that is bloodied by their blood. The T-shirt has a drawing of Mickey Mouse, or it says, "I love you, mom. I love you." I mean, as an artist, you should see that, and you should also share it with the people outside. How do you feel as an artist? How do you feel as a parent? How do you feel as a teacher when you see these kids who could be your students? How do you feel? I mean, you should react. You should respond to what you are seeing by writing about it, by singing about it, by painting about it, by crying about it, and show your tears to the people around you.
Thank you so much, Mosab, for all you're doing. Again, you're keeping all of us informed. And I know your time is limited with us, but since you're here, we want to ask you about Refaat Alareer. This session, as you know, is also an homage to him as a Palestinian writer and poet. And for those of you who need a reminder, he was killed on December 6, 2023 by an Israeli strike in northern Gaza. And he passed away along with his brother, sister, and 4 of his nephews. And we know that Refaat was one of your close friends. So we will be talking a little bit about his literary work and reading from the anthology that he edited, Gaza Writes Back in 2013. But with you, we wanna ask you about Refaat, the friend, the person that you know. What would you like to share with the viewers about Refaat?
Yeah, I mean, there are millions of things that you can say about Refaat. I'm Refaat, the teacher. He did not teach me, but I know him as a teacher, as a mentor, as a father, as a son, as a fan of Barcelona team, as a just as a friend, as a lover of strawberries, picking strawberries together in Beit Lahia. And by the way, the strawberries that Rifat was posing with in that photo was picked from my father-in-law's farm, strawberry farm in Beit Lahia. So for me, they killed the strawberry. They killed the strawberry by bombing the strawberry farm, by killing my father-in-law, who is the strawberry farmer, and also they killed the strawberry lover, Refaat Alareer. So they killed the strawberry. So the book, because you're gonna talk about the book, Gaza Writes Back. Want to say something about this. So Refaat published that book. I think it was 2014 or 2015, and if you read his introduction, you will find out that the number of the stories in the book corresponds to the number of days Israel attacked Gaza in 2014, 51 days. So there are 51 stories in the book because Israel attacked Gaza in 2014 for 51 days. And I want to invite every artist, every publisher, every writer to do something similar to correspond to the Israeli ongoing genocide. Today, I think it's 722 days of the genocide. And we should all be thinking of publishing or painting or doing something that corresponds. Hopefully the genocide ends tomorrow. To publish an anthology of stories, or maybe an anthology of stories, paintings, poems, photographs that correspond to the number of days that Israel committed this heinous genocide in Gaza. So for each day, something should be published. Maybe we will have 722 books. You don't know. There are so many stories from Gaza that have not been yet written, or there are some stories that were written but they are not published yet. In 2015, 2014, 2015, Refaat co-started an organization called We Are Not Numbers. And he told me, I mean, I was not yet a writer. I mean, I was just writing, some maybe silly stuff compared to now. So he said, Musab, do you like to write fiction? Do you like to write essays? There is this group called We Are Not Numbers. If you want to join it, I recommend you join it. So that's when I learned about the We Are Not Numbers project. And I joined that project, and I published 2 pieces with them. And it's a very important project. And there is a book, by the way, that I encourage everyone to get. It's called We Are Not Numbers. It was published just a few weeks ago. It's published in the UK, but also Interlink publishers published it in this country. So we are not numbers, right? And when Refaat said in his poem, "If I must die, let it bring hope, let it be a tale." So then, my death is not just a piece of breaking news that is replaced by another piece of breaking news a few minutes later. I need you to have my death as a story that is told to the generations that are coming. Why? Because when we read stories about those who were killed, when we read the stories about the other genocides, we are not reading these stories because we want to feel to feel some sympathy. We don't want to read these people to shed some tears. We don't want people to read stories in order to curse the oppressor. No, we write stories, and others read the stories or the tale in order to prevent this from happening again and again and again. We want to show the faces of the people who are killed, who are suffering, because others are trying to demonize us, to justify our killing, that these are beasts, these are human animals, these are terrorists, these are the people of the darkness, right? Let it be a tale. I want my story to be a tale that is told to other people. I just don't want to be a number. I want you to live, to tell my story. So this is something that I take from Refaat, and I live by it. And this is what every artist should be doing, to listen to Refaat's poem. And by the way, and then that poem, If I Must Die, that poem was written, by the way, not in 2023 or 2024. It was written in 2011. And he wrote it to his daughter, Shayma. Shayma was his oldest child. And Shayma was killed 4 months after Refaat was killed. She was killed in April 2024, along with her husband and their newly born child, who made Refaat a grandfather after Refaat was killed, unfortunately. So we need to live by Refaat's message, request, to live, not only to live, but to live for a reason, to tell the stories of those who did not make it with us. And yeah, I shared many stories about Refaat on my social media. I posted a video of him a few days ago of a parking ticket prank that I did along with my friend who is now in Gaza, Abu Sultan. Refaat did not say, "Oh, why are you pranking?" He said, "Oh, whose handwriting is that? It's very beautiful." That's Refaat, the Refaat that we know, a beautiful guy who sees the beauty, even in the handwriting of a prank ticket. I mean, parking ticket, right? Yeah, so that's Refaat that I love. That's Refaat that we should keep alive in our hearts and minds and action also.
Thank you so much, Mosab. And as I said, this session also aims to celebrate the legacy of Refaat, which will not be forgotten. As you mentioned, he left us with many books, including the one that we're going to be reading from today, Gaza Writes Back, which I should mention that this was a collection of short stories written by young Palestinian writers in Gaza in the aftermath of the 2008-9 Israeli assault. The 2014 assault that you mentioned, I think it was Gaza Unsilenced that he came back and published. But this one, it was called the Operation Cast Lead, for our viewers who don't know, one of the many attacks that Israel committed against Gaza. This was in 2008-2009, and it was described by Amnesty International as 22 days of death and destruction, where about 1,400 Palestinians killed in the aggression, including 300 children. It's not new. The world did not start on October 7, is also what we're trying to say.
By the way, I was wounded. I was wounded in one of the airstrikes in 2009 during that operation, and I survived death by chance. And here we are. So
here we are.
I mean, devastating.
22 days became 50 plus days.
I was 16 years old. I was a child, 16 years old, and I was wounded, and 7 people were killed in that airstrike. So, for us, we know we did not wake up one day in 2023 to watch the destruction of our homeland, of our people. We were born under, I mean, for us, we were born under the rubble of our country.
Thank you so much, Mosab, for joining us. We're very honored to have your voice in the room and to share space with you. We're going to let you go. We know you have a flight, I think, to catch, and we're going to begin the reading of excerpts from Gaza Writes Back, and we're going to come back after the reading to share a code with our audiences who would like to purchase the book at a discounted rate. We were offered this code by the publisher. But before we do that, I want to invite our actors to read excerpts and thank them in advance for lending their voices to these stories. We're going to begin with Edward, I believe.
Hello, everyone. I'll be reading On a Drop of Rain by Refaat Alareer. Scientists still do not unanimously agree whether raindrops originate in the sky as ice crystals or not, but that does not matter to me. I am no scientist. Abu Sami is a Palestinian farmer from the West Bank. He was busy on that windy day weeding his field, or what was left of it. He regretted not listening to his wife's frequent pleas not to go out. He was always doubtful about what she calls her special gift, her sense of the rain. He never listened to her, and if he did not pay attention to her interpretations and elaboration of her different methods of skillfully and accurately predicting when it will or will not rain, for how long and how heavy the rain will be. Although she must have told him the very same tale hundreds of times, he cannot retell her explanation except in excerpts. Sami touches the earth. She holds a tiny grain of sand, whispers to it, and listens back. In case when communication fails, she smells the grain. But that is metaphorically speaking. At least, Abu Sami thinks so. On the southern side of the wall, Abu Sami, along with thousands of Palestinian farmers, is not allowed to build rooms or erect tents, lest they should use these tents or structures to dig tunnels to the Israeli side. At least Abu Sami is luckier than his fellow farmers. He lost only 2/3 of his land. Countless others of his friends and relatives had their fields swallowed by the Israeli wall, cutting through the lands of the West Bank. For Abu Sami, at this very moment, the wall was useful. Living under occupation has taught him to see hope in the darkest of tunnels. Not that he digs such tunnels to infiltrate into the Israeli side. He ran to the wall. Gluing himself to the lengthy expanse of concrete, he was shielded from the heavy rain and the strong wind, though only partially by the wall. On the other side of the wall stood an Israeli farmer whose wife, too, had predicted rain and warned him against Palestinians infiltrating the security fence. He wanted to run to the concrete room he built a couple of weeks ago, but as the wall was closer, he hurried toward it. If they both had listened carefully, Abu Sami and the Israeli farmer would have heard their hearts beating against the wall. Or maybe they did hear the heartbeats but mistook them for the rumble of distant thunder. It was one particular drop of rain, a very tiny one. It could have fallen on Abu Sami's bare head had it not been for a sudden gust of wind that pushed it to the other side of the wall. It fell on the Israeli farmer's helmet. He never felt it. Other drops, however, were racing toward and seemingly preferring the unshielded head of Abu Sami. That drops of rain began their existence as ice crystals seems to Abu Sami very possible. But who cares about Abu Sami's views? He is Palestinian.
Hello, everyone. My name is Adam El-Sharkawi. I'm zooming in from Los Angeles, California. I will be reading The Story of the Land by Sahar Ali. To Dad. I looked at his teary eyes, and beholding something akin to happiness, I smiled. The man I have always known to be my father was back. He did not look like that unfamiliar man whom I could not fully recognize during the last 3 years. He was no longer that absent-minded, silent figure gazing at walls all the time and uninterestingly nodding whenever addressed by anyone at home. He was there. He was present. He was actually listening when I went on bragging about a high grade of mine. A phone call and a piece of paper signed by some Turkish-sponsored institution brought back my father. I looked at his eyes again, this time more carefully. for fear that my first glance was false. As I saw that absolute happiness in my father's eyes, a big smile made it to my face again. As we now commemorate the Land Day, we honor the people who stood up for their land in 1976, when Israel announced thousands of Palestinian dunams would be confiscated. During marches held to protest that declaration, 6 people were killed. The 30th of March brings back a memory of our land, my father's land. Though my father was born to a family of farmers, he did not follow that path. He studied economics and political science in Egypt and spent most of his youth working as a journalist, mainly a columnist, writing about economic and political issues in newspapers in Kuwait. When he was back in Gaza, though, he had to take care of the piece of land my grandfather left for him years before. It was not difficult for him. Gradually, the land became more of a passion than a profession. It was one of the few things he cared about, the daily thing that kept him busy. It was heaven on earth. During those 23 days of the Israeli attack on Gaza, we were constantly receiving news of land being run over by Israeli bulldozers. But these were rumors, or so my father wanted to believe. We all had hope that our land was still intact, totally untouched. We were clinging to the assumption that only other people's trees could get uprooted, but certainly not our beautiful, unmatched olives. Certainly not the trees that were to my father the only thing he boasted of to prove that he was no less of a Ghazan than those who repeatedly reproached him for, as they put it, recklessly leaving the land of black gold, where they assumed he swam in Kuwaiti oil pools every day, and for coming to live here. Gaza's sky was blue again. Things were over. The news said things were over. My father went there. He went to check up on the land. He put his faith in his olives being an exception, and he went there. He put his faith in that little white spot in the heart of the bulldozer operator who my father supposed could not have resisted the beauty of our land, and who listened to his innate good being that told him not to run over this land. He had faith in the goodness of man, and he went there. He put his faith in God, and he went there. My brother, who accompanied him, told us later that all they saw as they walked was ruined lands filled with bulldozed dead trees, which seemed to suffice for the family's need of firewood for years to come. My brother said Dad started crying as he saw people crying. They went on. They saw more toppled trees, feeble and defeated. Simply put, our trees were no exception. Our trees were gone. A miscellany of affliction and denial took over the place. My father's faith, I could tell, was smashed into little pieces. The world seemed like an ugly place. One of our trees, which later became the subject matter the whole neighborhood spoke of, was still standing there. Just 1 week before the attacks, my father told my brother how slanted this tree was and how quickly they needed to get rid of it. They were planning to cut it, and yet, ironically, it was the only tree the Israeli army left, out of boredom or out of mercy, I cannot tell. But it was still there. Later, whenever my cousins wanted to make Dad feel less terrible about it, they made fun of the whole thing. How the hell did the soldiers know you were planning to cut it anyway, and so decided not to cut it themselves? My cousins would remark. Everyone would start laughing. But Dad did not. His land and olive groves are not laughing matters to him. When my father and brother were home that day, my brother started telling us about what he saw. He told us that the trees were uprooted. Al-Jajar al-Jarif, he kept repeating. My father was in his room crying. During the weeks that followed my father's visit to the land, he had a daily schedule. In the morning, he prayed and read Quran. At night, he cried. Speaking about the land, the houses, and generally financial losses during or right after the Israeli offensive would have sounded very selfish and indifferent to others. When people are dying, you do not speak of your beautiful house that was leveled to the ground. When people are losing their legs and arms, leaving them disabled for the rest of their lives, you do not speak of your fancy car that once looked like a vase adorning the streets of your modest neighborhood, and that is now a gray wreck. When a mother is burying her child, before she could say goodbye, you do not speak of your land and your trees that were mercilessly uprooted. Those people speak. They cry. They mourn. You listen. And for the memory of your insignificant little misery, you grieve in silence. And that seemed to have amassed more agony over Dad's pain. Recently, I went to Father to get accurate information about the trees that were uprooted, their numbers and their age. Why are you asking? Are you applying for one of those charity institutions that offer some money and a bag of flour instead of helping people plant their trees again? No, Baba. I'm just writing something for my blog. Blog? Okay, whatever that is. So how many trees were uprooted? 180 olive trees, I guess, and 189 olive trees, 160 lemon trees, 14 guava trees. He bellowed, angry that I missed the exact number. Embarrassed, I lowered my head and wondered why I was doing this to myself. My thoughts were interrupted when he went on. Next time you decide to do whatever it is that you want to do right now, get your numbers straight. I made no reply. You hear me? They were 189 olive trees, not 180, not 181, not even 188. 189 olive trees. He left the room a few minutes afterwards. Guilt was all I could feel. That an Israeli soldier could bulldoze 189 olive trees on the land he claims is part of the God-given land is something I will never comprehend. Did he not consider the possibility that God might get angry? Did he not realize that it was a tree he was running over? If a Palestinian bulldozer were ever invented, I know, and I were given the chance to be in an orchard in Haifa, for instance, I would never uproot a tree an Israeli planted. No Palestinian would. To Palestinians, the tree is sacred, and so is the land bearing it. And as I talk about Gaza, I remember that Gaza is but a little part of Palestine. I remember that Palestine is bigger than Gaza. Palestine is the West Bank. Palestine is Ramallah. Palestine is Nablus. Palestine is Jenin. Palestine is Tulkarm. Palestine is Bethlehem. Palestine, most importantly, is Jaffa and Haifa and Akka and all those cities that Israel wants us to forget about. Today, I came to realize that it was not the phone call that brought my father back, nor was it the paper signed by the aid institution. It was the memory of the land being revived that brought him back. It was the memory of the olive trees giving that sense of security each time he sat under them, enjoying their shade and dodging the burning rays of the sun. It was the memory of long years of cherishing the land, years of giving and belonging. Between my father and his land is an unbreakable bond. Between Palestinians and their land is an unbreakable bond. By uprooting plants and cutting trees continually, Israel tries to break that bond and impose its own rules of despair on Palestinians. By replanting their trees over and over again, Palestinians are rejecting Israel's rules. My land, my rules, says Dad.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Nusaybah Almenaii and I'm joining you guys from Kuwait. I'm going to be doing my loaf of It's My Loaf of Bread by Tasneem Hamouda in the book. This precious loaf of bread I'm holding in my hand, fellows, has an epic story behind it, declared the little boy standing on a small wooden chair. I promised I would get it, and here it is, he boasted. His friends had gathered from every corner, route, and slum of the city, listening carefully as their little companion spoke proudly of how he managed to get their promised loaf back from all those long days they spent watching the bread on the sellers' carts roaming the city, leaving them with nothing but an irresistible aroma. It was the same aroma their parents and grandparents smelled for years, but never gained. The little one continued. He was a big old man, the biggest man I've ever seen. He wore striped cloth on. Wait, sorry. He wore a strangely striped cloth of black and white on his head. A kufiya, that's how I heard them call it, a friend interrupted. Hush, they don't need to know this, whispered the little boy as he drew his head closer to his companion's shoulder. His small audience was ever so enchanted by the loaf of bread that they didn't notice his stealthy interaction. He adjusted his kippah on his head and went on. I watched him day and night. He spread his bread on a small wooden pushcart as if it was ordinary bread. Oh, my friends, my heart bled seeing this happen to our bread. But I was patient, and I stood until that one sparkling moment came. I walked slowly towards him, captured this loaf of bread, and ran away, with the old man's cries chasing me. Did he chase you? A voice came from the crowd. He did not move at first. Maybe he didn't see it coming. Maybe the story would not have been this interesting to his audience had he told them the rest of it. How he wasn't the fast runner he thought he was, how he had almost been caught, and how he begged the policeman for mercy. He did not tell them of the police who insisted, despite the old man's pleas, to compromise. The police gave the boy only a crust and returned the rest to the old man. Still, his friends were more captivated when he drew the bread near his beaming mouth and gulped a big part of it. What happened next? Someone asked. I felt sorry for the old, breathless man. He must have hated the fact that a youngster like myself had defeated him, chuckled the boy, his voice choked by ultimate triumph rather than stolen bread. You felt sorry? Are you saying you wanted to give it back to him? A curious question arose. No. I snuck back and I took the rest, said the little one as he gulped the last bit of the old man's bread.
Hello, everyone. My name is SEVAN. I'm zooming in from New York City, and I'm reading a selection from Refaat Alareer's The Old Man and the Stone. And I want you to bury it with me. That's my will. I have had it for ages. I never let it out of my sight or my pocket. Okay? Do you remember your Uncle Sadak, who, God bless his soul, passed away when you were 5 years old? Said Abu Yusuf, only stopping for a second to catch a breath. He genuinely did not want to give his son Yusuf the time to answer his question. Life had taught him 2 fragments of wisdom. Kids will never, ever understand his passion for things, and if they do, their opinions usually indicate shallowness of thinking. Only vaguely, Yusuf interrupted him anyway. He brought it from Jerusalem. He thought I was crazy. He thought I was being silly because I kept asking him to bring me a stone or a handful of sand when he goes to Jerusalem. I am never silly or kidding when it comes to Jerusalem. Seeing that his son was distracted, Abu Yusuf elbowed him. Dad, how can you do it? Interrupted Yusuf again. Do what? Inquired his father. Tell a story with such passion, said the son, half kidding and half serious. So when I say bury it with me, I mean bury it with me. Make sure to slip it in my hand. I'm sure my grip will hold on to it. But if it does not, you can tie it in my fist, said the old man, ignoring his son, not detecting or perhaps not wanting to detect his sarcasm. Father, you're still young. Why would you want to die this young? Replied Yusuf. And make sure everyone knows about it. It's no secret, and it should not be kept a secret. I know you would be ashamed to tell others about a stone, thinking I am insane. But even your uncle, the most stubborn man that ever walked on earth, was finally convinced and brought it. Maybe he wanted to make me stop nagging, or maybe he did not want me to leave home and take a long, arduous journey to Jerusalem to get a stone. I do not care about the reason. He got a stone for me, from Jerusalem. A stone from Jerusalem. Unlike those people you see every day, I am far better than them all. I own part of Jerusalem, replied the old man, his voice rising every time he said Jerusalem. Dad, if everyone who loves Jerusalem brings a stone, a rock, or a handful of sand, we will no longer have Jerusalem. We will run out of Jerusalem. The picture would have saved you all the trouble and the embarrassment caused by that thing. It is not a thing, interrupted the man almost mechanically. What's that? Inquired Yusuf. The stone. It is not a thing. It is a stone from Jerusalem, said Abu Yusuf, a touch of impatience underlying his explanation. Okay, Dad, okay, it's a stone. The stone, bellowed Yusuf. The picture is not going to be like a stone that has been subjected to the rain and the heat and the cold and the dirt and the smell of Jerusalem. This stone is Jerusalem. It is, was the man's reply, adding extra emphasis this time on every word and taking a short breath between words. How so? Asked Yusuf, who had heard the very same answer hundreds of times. I have never forgotten Jerusalem for even one day since I got this stone 13 years and 2 months ago. When your uncle gave it to me, I was... Dad, do you still want to go visit my sister next week? Interrupted Yusuf intentionally in an attempt to change the topic. Yes, snapped the old man. I would swear that sometimes the stone wakes me up at dawn to pray al-Fajr. Of course it does. If you sleep with the stone in your pocket and you turn to sleep on the side where you put the stone, it will wake you up, Yusuf retorted with heavy sarcasm. You do not understand. You really do not. It is not like that. I mean, in another attempt to cut short an elongated explanation of the old man, Yusuf asked, Can I hold it, father? Came his father's reply. Surprised by his son's sudden interest in the stone, he found it a bit hard to let go of it. Dad, can I hold it? Okay, but be careful, replied his father, hesitatingly. Okay, said Yusuf, hurriedly extending his hand to hold the stone. Careful, I say, yelled the old man. Dad, this is too much. This has really become embarrassing and annoying. The stone! The stone! The stone! Shut up! His father shouted, red-faced, hastily grabbing the stone back. I'll tell you something. Your nephew Ahmed told me long ago that Uncle Sadek lied to you, Yusuf replied, this time his voice getting louder than his father's. What do you mean, lie to you? Asked the old man with a commanding voice, hoping his son was only saying that to tease him. He told his sons before he passed away to tell you the truth about the stone. It is simply not from Jerusalem. It is a false stone, came Yusuf's reply. What do you mean? What do you mean not from Jerusalem? If he told them, why did they not come to tell me? Asked his father. They know you very well, Dad. They were afraid that the truth might kill you. He said he felt too stupid to bend down and pick up a stone, so he got you one he found in front of his house, a false stone, explained Yusuf, regretting he ever broke the news he had struggled to keep secret for years. Stop lying to me, and stop saying false. It is not false, God damn it, yelled his father bitterly. He never used that word before. I'm not lying, Yusuf retorted. May he rot in hell. Too stupid to bend down in Jerusalem, growled Abu Yusuf, his anger rising like never before. He had never insulted his brother. Dad, take it easy, Dad, muttered his son in a faint voice. He knew very well what his father does as his fits of rage. Take it easy, echoed Abu Yusuf. Now he's rotting and he gave me that stone, gave it to me. Putting his left hand on his chest, trying to breathe, Abu Yusuf fell, his eyes wide open, staring up, his right hand clutching at the stone. Dad, stay with me. Stay with me. Dad!
Hello, everyone. My name is Hiba Sleiman, and I'm tuning in from Montreal. I'll be reading excerpts from Scars by Aya Rabah. I wanted to be alone and escape everything. I always dreamed to be like a blooming flower, covered with that magical meaning of warmth and life. I missed my son, Salam, meaning peace, and my daughter, Hayat, meaning life. I could not figure out why I chose these names for both of them, but maybe it was my way to defy the atmosphere of the world they came into. I used to hear my mother's shouts coming out of the kitchen, my brother's joyful yells reaching everywhere. Then everything was gone. My mother, my brothers, the tormenting smells filled our home. The sun's rays, forming transparent wings like those of a guardian angel, held the house. Then I could see nothing but dark peace. Yes, even peace can be dark. I still vividly see my mother's pale face like a full moon. "You are so selfish," my mother always told me. I did not know what made her see me like that. After the accident, I thought of a good explanation. I'm the only survivor of my family. I wanted life to be only for me. I should spend the rest of my life trying to get rid of this trait. When I was awakened at the hospital, I did not need any clues to feel the change that happened to me. I turned to the nurse and asked her, "Are you real?" "Do not worry, you're at the hospital. You're not severely injured. It's okay." In hospitals, most of the time we are told things we already know or are afraid of. I could see her white uniform, and I still remember when they put me in the ambulance without covering my face as they did with my family. I wished I could tell her I knew, but I kept silent. All I wanted was a much simpler answer. An answer telling me it was just a dream and everything will be okay. An answer that could sound like a perfect lie rather than reporting reality in such a harsh way. I tried to smile at the nurse, but I couldn't. I felt as if there was a mask on my face. "My face?" I asked. "It's just a superficial wound, don't worry. It will heal in no time," she reassured me. I did not want her to explain because it all seemed trivial at the time. Nothing mattered, not my face, nor my future, not even the war I survived, which taught me the meaning of loss. In fact, I did not want my wound to heal. I was satisfied with such tangible shame that could at least make me always remember those who lost their lives so others could survive. I felt as if Gaza had turned into a vast hospital where everyone was suffering. I became a girl with a scar. "Do you think history repeats itself?" my history teacher once asked me unexpectedly. I could hardly breathe. This question hit me hard. I stood hiding my cheek and cried. It was like being in a bubble, hearing nothing but my deeply buried memories. "People all turn into dust at the end, teacher. I think history does not repeat itself, yet when we go back in time by thinking, our memories dominate our present and future." I knew how much hypocrisy my answer implied, for what I thought about was my mother's scar on her right shoulder. My history teacher did not accept my answer. She believed in a highly organized world, though it meant repeated pain that so many would encounter again and again. I have to confess that as time passed, I came to agree with my teacher that history is always repeating itself, not necessarily in the same form, but it brings the same deformity to us. While taking the lives of my family one by one, death stood over my body and spared me. Why did death not consider me a suspect and put me in jail? Why did it take Hayat and let me live instead? It was not a time of war when she died, but it was not a time of peace either. A shell killed my family, and a fatal disease took my Hayat. Illness, like a bullet, invaded her body. There were no goodbyes, only wonders of why everything had to happen that way. Every time I face trouble, I blame my scar. It's like a curse. Nobody likes the deformed, except their creator. My daughter's disease was a declaration of war. Even before she was sick, she saw death everywhere. A tree is moving. A tree is killing. I hate trees, Hayat would say. I knew that she meant the soldiers she saw in the news and how they used their green uniform to hide among trees. I did not want my daughter to hate nature, yet she was stubborn and insisted her visions were true. I saw trees killing. I'm sure, Mom. Now my beautiful little girl has become ashes glittering in the depth of my heart. Home. This word suddenly rose in my mind as flashing fire. I felt colorless. I drank too much water until I became awfully united with my shadow. My shadow grew sadder and taller than me. My shadow never disappears, even in the midst of radiant light. Our home was lightly affected by a missile directed at a car passing our street. Only the windows shattered, and that was enough for history to repeat itself through a scar on Salam. All people have scars, I swear, I told Salam one moonlit night. Have they all been through wars, Mom? Yes, inner wars, darling. He kept painting many drawings of people with scars. Some scars were on their hearts, others on their heads. I passed Salam's grave without uttering a word. I noticed the lavender growing dignifiedly over his grave. He died by a stray bullet that conquered his chest. Sometimes I'm surprised by the faith I still keep in my heart after all that happened. Nevertheless, all I want is to have God's forgiveness, for I really sometimes think that it was me who caused all of this for my beloved ones. It is said that the fire can destroy everything along its way for its own prosperity. Very often, I see a burning fire when I look at myself in the mirror, but I do not want to believe that could be me. Salam was left here, a red flower in blossom lying over a desert. I bent and closed his body towards my chest, allowing my scar to embrace his. I remember how I suddenly stopped when I had seen a falling moon embodied within him. It is not another war, for the first war which took away my family many years ago never ceased. They say wars end, but in fact they never do. Wars never end. What is there beyond the sky? I asked my mother. Paradise. What does it look like? Like children's dreams. I was afraid of telling my mother that I rarely dreamed. What is massacre, Mom? Salam asked when I first told him what happened to my family. I do not know. Maybe the survivors can never understand it. Only those who bled can answer you, I answered dramatically. But you bled too. All that I can tell you is that nothing can justify it. Not even the most sacred ends in the world, not even peace itself. Understand me? Yes, Mom. Nothing can justify our scars. I could not explain why I saw death in my son's eyes at that moment. The clouds came and attacked the moon later. No moon was seen in the heavens anymore. I can still hear the echoes of my children everywhere I roam. They did not like my daughter's name, and they took her to opposite its meaning. They were jealous of my son's name and took him to further a real one, a real kind of peace. You're smiling. Yes, I'm okay. The first time Salam truly smiled was when he was dying.
Thank you so much to all our readers. If you'd like to purchase the book Gaza Writes Back, we invite you to use this special discount code offered to us by the publishers. Thanks so much to them. Gives you 50% discount. With that, we are going to move on to our next program for 24 Hours for Palestine. And next up is a film screening by the Palestine Institute for Public Diplomacy from the Soul Survivors docu-series Between Stolen Present and Future in Gaza.